we're talking about Marijuana, the movie Marijuana, and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
And then like, uh, do you just want to like, do it in that order, or you got
I'm
a setup of
I'm just gonna go into it because I
gonna do that?
imagine more than most this episode might be a little wandery. But welcome everyone to Safe Movies. This is the 420 episode. Happy 420,
Woohoo.
y'all. I am as always David DeMoss, and I'm joined as always by my friends Kevin and Rachel.
What's up?
Hey guys.
And
You can
today
tell
we
she's stoned.
and today we thought we'd celebrate because God knows
We celebrate.
there's fuck all else to do in what is now the fourth week under quarantine. We have 700 ventilators in the entire state, and we sent 50 to New York. So and the western states have entered in their first pact to maybe get all of this back to quote unquote normal by May.
Or it's the beginning of Cascadia.
I was going to say my plan
Free
to become
Cascadia.
the Simone Bolivar of Grand Cascadia proceeds apiece. I hope you will all join me because you're all going to get cabinet posts in the new administration
Yes.
once we and somehow you're all going to have to help me come up with a plan to counter the Holy Kingdom of Deseret to our east, because God knows they're going to have more nukes than we do. But
The Mormons? Oh God.
indeed, yes.
Yeah.
But of course, this will be one of those things nobody's going to think about until it's too late. Foreign
Yep.
policy.
Nuclear armed Mormons. That's a frightening thought.
I'm laughing to keep from screaming, yes. But, yeah.
I just
But
like picture
that's-
them on their bicycles and they're like white shirts with the black ties with like a full RPG on their back with the bicycle. Like,
carrying carrying the nuke in like a little red wagon behind the bike.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to be that big anymore. They never did in the first place.
Door to
But-
door nukes.
That's right. Join us or else.
Now we must exercise diplomacy if we are to survive, right? We first of all we got to get Alberta on our side. Then we have to take the oil fields in Alaska, and then we might have a chance at being self-sufficient, because otherwise we're screwed. Which is why all of this talk of civil war, regional secession, or even just splitting everything off and forming the United States of Canada or something is ridiculous. But there are silver linings and rays of hope everywhere. We would hope for federal legalization, if for no other reason than to keep everyone from going completely insane under these shelter-at-home conditions. And
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just said yes. I was agreeing with you.
Okay, yes, and really the example of Canada is quite odd, because of course once they legalized, all of the conservative shitheads up there who'd spent years calling pot the gateway drug immediately turned around and became vice presidents or consultants of various and sundry weed startups.
Oh yeah, that happened. That happened in Washington. This politician who was super active in opposition, now owns like a bunch of dispensaries up there. Like,
Because
Of course. Hypocrisy with the conservatives? Never.
yeah. Well, no. Now I am all about like finding what works. And if we can lure them with the idea of money and taxing us, because like this industry has been an industry that has very openly been like, tax us. We want to be taxed. Bring on the regulation. We're all about it, and they've been very, very nimble in adjusting to that. They're a business in many states because of the medical side of it that is been deemed essential, and they have stepped up. It's a place that is rife for taxation and income for states that need it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Which
have a
is all
lot
of
of
them.
hope that like the alcohol prohibition uh, being ended as we ushered into the Depression, it was a lot of economic pressure that um, made the end of alcohol prohibition happen. I really hope that federally we can finally decide that marijuana is not a Schedule 1 drug, that it can go along with Schedule 2 drugs such as cocaine. I think we could all just agree that it should be
Yes.
lowered at least to the point of cocaine.
Yeah, I'll take it because it's just ridiculous having it as a Schedule One drug.
Right.
It's never made any logical sense.
And was always political football to be kicked around by those forces that, yes, could see it as a growth industry if they tried. But, in that spirit, and in the spirit of going all the way back to the beginning of all of this, to the days of Harry J. Anslinger diseased, and to the waning days of Prohibition, I forced my friends to watch 1936's Marijuana, directed by Dwayne Esper. Spelled just like it sounds. The king of the self-proclaimed, the proclaimed godfather of exploitation films. And the king of the roadshow attractions. That's even what his distribution company was called. From the days when you really could just go from town to town selling cheap, crappy movies to anybody who was willing to put them on. The first days of the first drive-ins. And so, yes, Rachel, I must say I did love the description of the plot of Marijuana with an H that you put into the group chat there. Because,
yeah, like when
yes, you are completely spot on.
Yeah, so when
Pretty
we
much.
first were talking about, what are good movies that are 420 movies that like don't necessarily make the obvious list, right? So Reefer Madness is one that's always on people's lists. People always,
With
oh,
good
you've got to
reason.
yeah.
That's connected to our subject, actually. Esper didn't have anything to do with making Reefer Madness, but of course he bought it up and distributed it. Or
Right,
repackaged
but
it.
but I think like any holiday, we have our own traditions. We have the music, like Bob Marley, right? We've got the movies. Reefer Madness is one of them, like Harold and Kumar, of course, all the Cheech and Chong movies, right? So there are these movies that are just sort of very common, and I wanted to think about ones that were maybe less common. And when you pointed out marijuana with an H, I was like, oh yeah, I remember I actually used to have a poster that was the cover, and it was, I think, Burma, like kind of in a swooning position. But
Oh,
yeah,
yes. To the side, she's in the robe with the cap on, or...
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
sort of like a red and yellow poster.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and what struck me about halfway through this movie was exactly how much more complicated it was than both Reefer Madness, but actually of other mental hygiene films, because I'm a huge fan of mental hygiene films, these films that were created to educate people about the various dangers of drugs and sex and homosexuality and all sorts of things that they were like scared. Communism and the Japanese and just these great propaganda films. But this storyline was so complicated, and only like sort of contextually had marijuana involved with it.
Yes. That is the biggest surprise about marijuana. Marijuana is literally the tip of the iceberg. And by the end of it, the film becomes much less of what most people would describe when you say mental hygiene films, and much closer to an actual film noir story of one young woman's descent into sin and iniquity, but also into becoming the queen of snow.
Yeah, doesn't she shoot up at the end there too?
No, she's the queen
Yes.
of the snow peddlers.
Yes,
Very
that's
specific
correct.
title there.
The Queen of the Snow Peddlers.
Of
That's
the
correct.
snow peddlers.
Yeah, it's a prequel to Frozen. Yeah. Little known
More,
fact.
more like a gritty reboot. It's an Elseworlds of Frozen.
Yeah, I don't like it's it's got this twist ending, and like I'm trying to figure out like how it got the title Marijuana, because at the where she starts to really become the drug kingpin, she is obviously peddling heroin. Hence this queen of the snow peddlers, right? She's peddling like
Mm-hmm.
much harder drugs.
Hmm.
And
Where it's much easier to become a kingpin. Yes.
right, and then she kidnaps her sister's kid, who turns out to be the kid that she ended up giving up for adoption in this like super complicated plot. But she at the end when she overdoses, she's not smoking weed or anything, but like when she falls to the floor, like out of this weird, it reminded me of some scenes in Wizard of Oz where like stuff just kind of like appears out of nowhere when the she's like falling on the ground. These joints just like fall everywhere, as if they were like, oh yeah, we forgot this movie is about
Yeah,
weed, throw some weed on her corpse. Like what the
yeah.
fuck was that?
Were they like sprinkling them from like a bucket above her head or
It
something off
like
camera or something? Or
I so
it's really
it's
weird.
so I thought initially, like, is this supposed to be like falling out because like one of the people like clutching her body was the drug kingpin, right? So I was like, is this falling out of a shirt like on her? Is it all? But like in some like, and I think they did this by like cutting the actual film together, because sometimes it looked like it didn't fall. It just like popped out of her coat. Like
Yeah, it's very unclear. Yeah, what was going on there? But I
Sloppy
think you're
edit.
right. They're like,
Yes.
oh shit, yeah, we forgot. It's about marijuana. Throw a little of that in there in the last scene for whatever fucking
yeah,
reason.
yeah, like, and the first like I want to say like first 20 minutes of it is very Reefer Madness-y, right? Like there's people who are playing like, oh god, the jazz music very loudly, and people are swing dancing because of course
Yeah,
swing dancing is done by the kind of people who are like drinking and doing
yeah,
drugs.
loose women.
Right.
I like how there's that
Yes.
older couple at the bar too that were like, these kids are partying it up. It's like, oh god.
Oh no, that was so great. And she like they make this comment, like the guy's like very stiff and awkward. And she's like, oh, they're like partying it up, and she's like, well, I wouldn't be here today if my parents didn't go out and do some of this stuff. And we're like,
Yeah, yeah. I thought I was kind of surprised by this. Must have been before they really cracked down with the censorship, because I was surprised by some of the lines that like made it into the film, and also like the skinny dipping scene. I was like, oh,
no,
this must be before they really cracked down on what was that called, the Hayes Code or something like
It
that?
was indeed, yes. And though it was officially agreed upon in the year this movie, or 1933 rather, it took quite a while to really catch on. And because there was enforcement mechanisms were obviously very shoddy and confined mostly to LA or New York. So if you were, say, an independent American filmmaker, you could just go anywhere else for a while and do whatever you wanted. Especially
true,
if you were
but
selling these
here's
movies
the thing
yourself.
here's the thing that's mind-boggling to me. Not that this movie got made and the way it got made, with like the nude scenes and like the over-the-top stuff with, pre-censorship. But in the very beginning, and I kept this in mind the entire time I was watching this movie, in the beginning it says it's endorsed by the narcotics division of like multiple police divisions.
Yeah, I saw
And
that. It's based on real case files.
right, and then
Really?
like, and so by the time we
Insert
got to
the
like the
Law and
titty
Order
shots
meme.
at the beach,
Yeah.
I was like, did anybody there watch this like before
Pro-
they
Probably
Yeah.
not.
It was like, yeah, they were trying to have this moral undertone, and then like they're just like, here's some nude ladies, like for your enjoyment. They're definitely trying to. It was definitely an exploitation film, trying to keep it salacious while trying to parade as serious filmmaking. Bullshit.
And
Yeah,
it
but
and
for
it
the
turns
first
out
one,
you can just put the names of police associations on your film without actually asking them. And yeah, with the chance of them finding out being very slim before the coming of the internet.
The
well, I think
ridiculous thing is that these kinds of movies and all the ridiculousness somehow captured the public attention enough to actually inform drug policy in the future. It's like, Jesus Christ, man, like, what the fuck were you people on, like, back then? Like, this kind of shit filmmaking, we're like, wow, we gotta take this problem seriously. This shit's killing the kids. Like, oh my god.
honestly, here is what's the kind of brilliant thing about this film, particularly compared to Reefer Madness, because Reefer Madness really was driving home that people were acting out of their minds because of the marijuana, right? And it was furthering this dialogue that there is like an insanity that you could risk if you smoke weed. But what I actually liked about marijuana, and of course they don't point this out in the movie, but the actual depiction of the people smoking weed, she's just like giggling a lot, right? There's a
Yeah.
girl, there's a girl who drowns, but they had been drinking before that. They had been drinking heavily and she swam out into the ocean and she drowned. So they don't even actually tie her death directly to marijuana.
Hmm.
Actually, all the downsides, all the things that Burma gets involved in, her life going south, the giving her kid up for adoption, all of that stuff happens actually because marijuana was in this shady legal place and she got caught up with the drug kingpin. It was actually a narrative how when marijuana is illegal and there's a black market for it, how that can actually end up being really destructive, and then exposed her to someone who had connections, because she can't just go into a dispensary with trusted people. She's now connected to somebody who's has a line on heroin, who's got all these drugs that she ends up peddling. So if anything, this movie actually becomes a story of why the illegalization, the prohibition on marijuana is actually destructive.
Yeah, and it only took you know 90 years for people to finally start realizing this. What an enlightened society we are.
If that, yes, but no, I'm glad you picked up on the nature of that, Rachel. Can you see why I like this one more than at least original Reefer Madness? The musical is its own thing, obviously, but in terms of like its contemporaries, even other films directed by the same director, like his previous movie Narcotic is nothing really to write home about. But this one, stands out to me for the fact that not only does it actually have a plot, but yes, as you say, the plot is far more sympathetic to its main character than most of its genre would be, shall we say.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Like I said, it was way more complicated of a story. And there was also all of these like really superfluous scenes and like add-ons that like the henchman goon like playing like meowing like a cat with the girl.
Yep.
What am I watching? What
Another
why did this not end up on the editing floor?
Another directorial trademark. Yes, one that Esper would share with his reincarnation in the next generation, Ed Wood.
Yeah, there's some bizarre, like, I don't know. I feel like not much was filmed that did not actually get into the film.
And
Yeah, there was a little.
You're probably correct. Yes.
Yeah, light on the editing. Light on the editing.
Couple hammy attempts at comedy in the opening bar scene where like the drunk guy like can't pour his beer in the cup, and the other guy, maybe it's the same guy, loses his hot dog in his drink.
Yeah,
I
there was
like,
there was like a lot of shenanigans in the first 20 minutes where I was like, like, how long is this gonna go on? Like,
for a movie that's only an hour long, it does stretch out, doesn't it?
well, and all the like antics and people, it was all like centered around drinking. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I see like a shot here and there, but they didn't even get to people smoking weed until after they showed them being stupid for like 15 minutes. So I was like, is this yes, I agree. Drunk people can be annoying. Are we are we done hammering home that point in the movie Marijuana? I don't know.
Right, yeah, yeah. That's yeah, for like they spent like a good 20 minutes just showing people getting drunk. And then I swear this movie must have established the whole drug dealer cliche that, you know, of the drug dealer that tries to get the kids hooked and they give out free drugs because that's what drug dealers always do. They just hand out free drugs, you know.
Right.
They're not looking out for their bottom line. And there's even that scene between the two goons where they're like all shifty eyed, you know. He's got his
Like
little pencil
like
mustache. He's
yes,
like,
like
these
goon
kids are
vibes.
less suspicious and easily hooked. Like they literally say that. I'm like, because that's how drug dealers talk, you know. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I
And that's
love
literally something that like they taught us in school, like in the Dare program. They're like, yeah, it's like they watched this movie and we're like, that's what a drug dealer is. Yep. It's like,
yeah, and the drug dealer totally looks like Groucho Marx's drug dealing brother.
okay.
Like
Right.
he's got like almost the same like outfit going on and like the eyebrows and the black like wave pompadour hair. It's so funny.
Anybody want to smoke some weed? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah, totally. They just man, if they had cast him for that part, this would be a way better movie.
If
Oh
they
yeah, he would
had,
have elevated any material. Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
it would have been an instant classic. Yeah, of both the exploitation and crime genres.
Yeah, and instead of his trademark cigar, it'd just be a huge blunt.
Just a giant, yeah, I love it. Giant blunt. Yeah, another movie that I really like to watch, and it's I never see it really mentioned on the list of 420 movies is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Great film.
Which, yes, I should thank you. It had been a long ass time since I'd gone this far back in the Guy Ritchie oeuvre. But this, opportunity reminded me of so many fucking things. I had forgotten Matthew Vaughn came up with Ritchie together. They were both, a couple of no goods nicks from London who eventually conquered Hollywood. I'd forgotten Jason Statham has such good comedic timing. He doesn't get
God, he
the
is
chance
so
to use
brilliant.
it much anymore.
So brilliant in that movie.
Yeah. And I'd forgotten the general sense of, yes, the Guy Ritchie criminal underworld. Obviously, plenty of directors have come along to flesh out the, bumbling criminals of, tripping over their own dicks into success or not subgenre since this was released in 1998. But goddamn, it is nice every once in a while to go back to the well and to just admire the Swiss watch precision of one of these things coming together, and to see how poorly Ritchie's imitators have done in his absence as he's moved on and gotten paid, I hope.
Yeah, I feel like Ritchie's really gone downhill. I mean, I don't know. I feel like his first two films were his strongest, and then after that, it just kind of like, eh.
Yeah, I really like
After
watching...
that, we're remaking Aladdin.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I really like watching Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch back to back. I think they're a great pairing. I think also there is a lot to be, even though I do very well with pretty thick British accents, been to London enough and dealt with them in person enough that I'm pretty good with that. I do think just because of how rapidly they speak, there's a lot to be gained by watching these with closed captions.
Yeah, I watch everything with closed captions because you just pick up so much more stuff.
Yeah, and there's certain like poetry, particularly in Jason's character. I think his name's Bacon.
Yes.
Yeah, Bacon. Like when he's hawking his wares, like there's on the street, and he's like, this is where we separate, my friends from my enemies. He just has like such great patter there that and there's so much packed in there that I felt like I caught so much more when I watched it with captions.
I'd buy knockoff jewelry from Jason Statham. Um, and yes, though I do appreciate how they subtitle the Cockney rhyming slang and translate it for those of us who are
Yes.
Yeah.
maybe not familiar. I'd forgotten. Yes, little stylistic touches like that, which is what endeared me to Ritchie in the first place. Little quality of life improvements to keep things, thick, like the voiceover to keep everyone on board, and just like you say, the general rhythm of the character dialogue that he uses to create this world. That it's the same effect as, say, the rhythms of a Dashiell Hammett novel. It's, obviously not our world, but it is a world of, likable criminals and good old, and it's nice to hang out every once in a while and to see their follies and
Yeah,
and
I
foolishness
think
as their lives cross and crisscross.
yeah, and I think this movie was so good. It caught the attention of a lot of people. Um, I read that Brad Pitt actually, and this is one of the reasons I like pairing the two of them together. That Brad Pitt liked it so much that that's why he was in Snatch. I don't remember if like he asked to be in it or like how that happened, but he had watched Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels so much and liked it so much. That's why he ended up being in Snatch.
I
Snatch is
see.
essentially like it's almost like a remake of Lock, Stock, except without the rifles, it's the diamonds, But it's so similar. They're so similar. But that's got to be for me like uh, Brad Pitt's like one of his best acting jobs
Oh,
ever.
I did not respect Brad Pitt as an actor at all until I saw that movie, and I was like, all right, damn.
Yeah, he was killing it with all these people who actually from that area, but his fucking accent was flawless. It was amazing. That's still one of the best parts of the movie.
The other thing that I really like, and I don't, Dave, maybe you know this, but did you know that Jason Statham actually like was selling stuff on the street when Guy Ritchie found him?
Yes, and that's one of those. It's one of those wonderful coincidences that the universe sets up every once in a while. You cast people for what they're best at.
And I love that too because it makes that scene where he's hawking his wares just so much better because like that was in his natural mode. Like that must have been what he was like when he was I think he was selling perfume, like knockoff perfume.
And that would,
Well,
yeah, that's a beautiful image, actually. Jason Statham selling knockoff perfume until he was whatever age he was at this point, and then, yeah, fast forward 20 years, international action star, Jason Statham.
this was the film that kind of launched his career because looking at IMDb, before this movie, he was really only known for. It says he was a silver painted dancer in an Erasure video. So yeah, he really he made some good career moves.
Yeah,
Obviously,
that's so amazing. I love his acting. I think he does great. Even if they have him playing a lot of the same characters.
Mhm.
I think
Oh, he's just Jason Statham now to most of my action cats. No matter what he's in or who he's playing, nobody bothers to remember his character's name because you pretty much know what you're going to get. And he's, yeah, glided on that for quite some time. And honestly, gotta respect the hustle. I'm like, get that paper, bro. Because, yes, nobody wants to go back to hawking perfume on the street.
right.
but this
Yeah.
movie's got so many. It's tough to the gills with so many like British actors that are famous now. What's his name? Jason Fleming. That guy's been on a ton of shit.
Yep.
Dexter Fletcher
look at the
is
baby
the guy
face.
that just directed. He just directed that Elton John movie.
Yep.
Oh, really? That's the
Yeah,
wow.
Dexter Fletcher. Yeah, he's done really well for himself as of late. Now he's a big time director. Vinnie Jones, the guy with the son.
the great Vinnie Jones. Yes,
He's great in this movie. Him and his kid. Yeah, and he's so fucking menacing. Amazing. Yeah. Although we will forget his turn as the Juggernaut. I think he played right in
Yes.
X-Men 3.
Yes, he did because
Oh,
Matthew Vaughn went on to become a producer on the X-Men movies and a director of First Class, which I would call the best one. But yeah, he's had a producer hand in pretty much all of them. I think, if not since the beginning, then since very close. Because this got picked up, I believe, by Fox, and so yes, for a while that was Ritchie's wheelhouse and the wheelhouse of everyone he brought along with him into the Hollywood system. They've diversified somewhat since. They've scattered to the winds, but yeah, it is nice how you can go back and you can see the beginnings of all these great careers in just one neat package.
Yeah,
of course. It's also the movie that launched a little-known actor named Sting's career too. No, just kidding. You remember he's in this movie, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
What?
he plays the main character's dad, right?
Yep, that's him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Sting, yeah, and he actually does pretty good, yeah. But yeah, I remember watching that, being like, "What the fuck?" Because what has he done acting-wise besides this and Dune? Does he acted in any other movies? Yeah. And Dune was not his best acting, but
nor
was anyone's acting in that movie, except Patrick Stewart. So yeah,
because he always shows up to work. Yes,
that's right.
Yeah, though I do hear tell that actors say that your career is over when you're old enough to start playing someone else's dad, or actually someone else's parent. So, actually,
right.
No, Sting was... Well, actually, looking at this now, Sting was in a lot of crap. It's just that most of it was crap. Except for Baron Munchausen.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Though most of it was also just cameo roles. I imagine Sting, he's like one of those guys, he'll just... If he's on set that day, they'll point at him and be like, "Yo, Sting, you want to be like a background guard somewhere?"
It's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, all right.
He just kind of shows up whenever there's British people filming.
That's right. Yeah, he's never far away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're going to kick him out, right?
Yeah,
but...
I do like these movies, both of those movies, for basically, and I see what you mean. Like they're almost a remake. There's very different plot points, but it is,
a bit.
Career
I like to
criminals
think of it
sort
like
falling ass backwards into a big score, right?
Yeah,
I like to think of it like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, exactly. And like not clearly not a remake, but sort of like they just took the same concept and repackaged it and
said,
made it a little shinier. Yeah.
The second time around, they said, "Oh wait, we have actual money now. Wow, we can do stuff that we couldn't before." Not that there aren't some creative ass shots in Lock, Stock.
Oh yeah, it's very like the feeling of these two movies is very, very similar.
And you can tell early that Ritchie had already established like a style that he wanted to work in, and it comes out very strong right out the gate. And to my mind, it always reminds me of like 70s crime films.
Oh yeah, for sure. Really gritty, and the breakneck, just rapid fire dialogue is like the best thing. Which I feel like he needs to go back to that, because I didn't see any of his other later films, except I think it was called. Didn't he do like Rock and Rolla or something like that? Daniel Craig. It was another gangster movie, and I feel like that was the last one. But he got mixed up with Madonna, and she like fucking drained his life force or something, because his whole output and his movies really took a dive. It seems while he was entangled with that individual. So hopefully his mojo is slowly regaining, and he
did make Swept Away. Yes, earning himself a Golden Raspberry for Worst Director and nomination for Worst Screenplay, for whatever that's worth. Not that Swept Away is the worst movie of 2002 by a long stretch. But yeah, we don't. Yes, that's why the golden raspberries are shit, and we do not
Okay.
respect them.
Have you guys seen The Gentleman? It's a Guy Ritchie movie.
No, it's it's his most recent one, and it's
It is his most recent remake of Lock, Stock, and Snatch.
yes, and apparently, yes, it was quite well received by the few people who saw it last year. Most were in just complete PTSD shock that he remade Aladdin. And yeah, apparently he did that in order to get The Gentleman financed and released by someone other than, say, a modern Dwayne Esper.
It's another marijuana gangster movie. It's another.
I'm reading about it now. I didn't know he did The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I heard was pretty good. He did that one too with
yes, indeed. It was
Superman.
It was all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it, so I can't say either way. But yeah, I thought you were joking when you said that he wrote Aladdin. He actually did write the screenplay to Aladdin. But it seems like a smart career move. Yeah, he's like, fuck it, give me this check, so I can make my own movie. Because you're not gonna turn that into that Disney movie money, you know. It's a lot of money.
It really is.
And if you guys haven't seen The Gentleman, it is actually really good, especially if you do like Lock, Stock, and Snatch. If you're not like opposed to, seeing, a lot of that same kind of plot and storyline. I mean, it is different. Like all of these are very different. But it's cool. I really liked it. It's cool to see the evolution of it. And I think I don't know about the timeline with Madonna, but I think it's one of the movies that I've seen post his relationship with her that I really enjoyed.
And I would actually defend the Sherlock Holmes movies.
You like those, huh? I didn't like those.
For all their over stylization and general, like generic Hollywood action movie tentpole blockbusterness, they have, for me, still an essential charm to them, mostly because of the two leads, more than anything else, and because
those guys are always good. Jude Law and Robert Downey. I wasn't too impressed with Robert Downey's accent, but that wasn't the point. It was more just like a fun romp. So, and who played the bad guy? I think it was in the first one. Mark, what's his name? Mark. He's always a good actor. He's another
Mark
famous.
Strong.
Mark Strong.
Yes,
he's always
our boy.
Yeah. He's a very strong actor. Yeah.
Yes, we do stand. Yeah, we do stand Mark Strong. Unfortunately, he's fallen to typecasting as, various and sundry one-off villains in multiple sci-fi fantasy franchises by now. He was the bad guy in John Carter. He was the bad guy in the Green Lantern movie.
That's right.
He has a wonderful turn in the Matthew Vaughn film Kick-Ass as the villain. One of the villains. The ultimate villain, I should say.
Bad guy in Shazam, right?
I was going to say, most recently, yes, I saw him as Dr. Shyvana in Shazam, which, at least there, he had the benefit of surviving until the end. And even got a post-credits scene where, Mr. Mind came to him in jail, and with a plan for a sequel hook. But we'll see where that goes. Cross your fingers. I'm not holding out hope very much because, of course, it's Warner Brothers. And we don't trust them to tie their shoes on.
No, not a good track record.
When, I already told Rachel this, but some PR flack said that we have no plans to delay Wonder Woman 2's release or to, push it out onto HBO Go, I think is their streaming service or something. And I took that as a 100% metaphysical certain sign that they're probably going to delay it or release it on HBO. So,
I don't know how they can logistically put it out when they're thinking of with the movie theater situation the way it is right now. So
no kidding. Those bastards at AMC, they bought up what I always thought of as our theater, closed it down, reopened it just in time for the pandemic, and now they're going out of business.
Yeah, AMC bought the what was it called? It's the ones with all the seats and they bring the food to you. What was that?
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
Cinetopia.
Cinetopia. Yeah, they bought the one right up the street for me, and then this shit hit. So I was like, yeah, I guess you guys are losing money. Yeah.
Great timing, gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
As always. But yes, so yes, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, very good. Everyone should go out and watch it.
A lot of a lot of weed related. I mean, the whole plot revolves around. I think the funniest part about it is, isn't there this whole convoluted situation where they end up selling the weed back to the
person they stole it from.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of good shit like that. And then the scene you mentioned the other day where he shows up at the gate with the passed out girl, and the guy's like, "You don't look like your average fucking horticulturalist."
Right. Right.
Fucking brilliant.
He's like, we grow copious amounts of ganja.
Ganja, yeah, that guy's so good. Copious amounts of ganja, yeah.
Yeah, you're buying fertilizer with a half-conscious Gloria. Yes.
Yeah, you're carrying a bag of fertilizer and a semi-conscious Gloria. Yeah, fucking amazing. Is weed still illegal in the UK? It is, isn't it? It is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this movie could still happen over there. That's so bizarre.
That was the other thing. That's part of why I wanted to juxtapose these two. To see how far the at least popular depiction of weed peddling gangsters had come in the intervening 60 years. Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the things that is interesting about watching The Gentleman, which is, I think it was 2019.
Yes,
that was released. It's like pretty recent. Is that you kind of get a quote updated version of it, but it's still like in this same flavor. Like all the people are still. It's been modernized, but all the people are still have this like very kind of gangster interaction. And the dialogue is great, which in all of these movies, Lock, Stock, Snatch, The Gentleman, like the dialogue is funny, it's crisp, it's very unique.
Yeah, everyone's clever. Everyone's super clever.
And it would be impossible to find potheads this articulate in an American film of similar vintage.
Right.
They'd be, you'd give it to Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, functional potheads.
He'd be the guy. Yeah, he'd be the guy who's using the giant bag as a pillow as he veges out on the couch.
Yeah, he's Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
There's also this scene that, like, I can't think of any movie that has anything similar. But there is this flashback part where Bacon is talking about Hatchet Harry, and I forget, like, do you know what I'm talking about? When
in the sex shop, yeah,
and he like reaches out,
spanking,
reaches out for the nearest thing at hand, which happens to be this huge black cock, and like beats him with it, and like as far as like the visuals that like that, just the storytelling and the way that they showed that, it is sort of burned into my memory at this point.
Yeah, the dildo beatdown is iconic. Definitely one of Guy Ritchie's best things he ever gifted us. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Guy Ritchie, for coming up with an excuse to show. Did GTA or was it Grand Theft Auto, or am I thinking of
You're thinking of Saints Row, I believe.
Saints Row. That had to have been after this movie, right?
It was. Oh god, yes.
I wonder if they got that from those.
I would not be surprised considering their reference base, because like it takes a lot for especially, and it took even more in the 90s when it was a much more crowded field, to enter the Anglo-American canon of necessary crime gangster movies. And very few of them jump into the queue instantly in the way that, say, this did as soon as it came out. Well, I shouldn't say as soon, because of course things were not as advanced back then. I didn't see this until 2000, 2001, something like that, but still. It immediately became highly influential on both sides of the Atlantic, and has certainly leaked into our video games by now. I mean, the depiction of both the world, that fuzzy world where organized and disorganized crime meet, and instead of being just a den of sin and iniquity, it's mostly just a den of fuck ups, small time hustlers, and just losers. Our protagonists are the losers of the criminal world, right? They're like, only one of them has a real job, and the rest are just going from harebrained scheme to harebrained scheme, trying to scrape by.
And none of what they're doing, like, these are people who are making a buck off of anything that's illegal. Like, they're hawking stolen jewelry. They're doing like whatever is going to make them a buck. It just happens to be that in this case, because marijuana is illegal, the price of it's so high that happens to be their hustle at the moment, right?
Yep. And only because they hear about it through the wall of their neighbors talking.
Right. And so I think that also is interesting about Guy Ritchie's films, and the movie Marijuana was, both of them, they don't necessarily demonize marijuana by itself. What happens in those films happens because marijuana is illegal and wouldn't happen if it was regulated.
Yep.
It's almost like prohibition breeds organized crime, which breeds disorganized crime, which breeds all kinds of, wonderful explosions of violence that are...
It's too bad we hadn't already learned that lesson on some other substance. If only.
Yes. Who would have thunk?
Yeah, who would have thought? It's revelatory. Yeah, no, that's crazy talk though. What are you smoking?
Something good. That's what I heard.
Disco biscuits.
Disco biscuits. That sounds like something you'd find on Urban Dictionary.
I know, right?
Like for some unsavory act or something.
Well, no,
probably some kind of 4chan meme.
I thought disco biscuits was like a slang for some other drug, so I was surprised that this strain is actually called disco biscuits. But I got it because it's the specific phenotype that won the award in Europe like 4 years in a row or something.
Oh, the cup, yes.
Yeah, the cup. Yeah, so I was like, well, of the top shelf weed, I was like, this one's award winning. Let's go ahead and try that, because I guess there's like Girl Scout cookies or any other strain. There's Blue City Diesel is a really good example of that, where there's different crosses that are called Blue City Diesel. So you can have two strains both called Blue City Diesel, and they're actually made from they're actually crossed from different strains. They're like totally different. So there's more than one disco biscuit. I think both of them are crossed with Girl Scout cookies, of course, which is GSC now because they're not allowed to say anything.
And aren't the Girl Scouts going bankrupt now? So
no, that's the Boy Scouts.
Well, no, I heard that the Girl Scouts aren't doing so hot now too. They tried the Boy Scouts tried to bring the girls in, and that didn't turn out so well. And I heard that the Girl Scouts are, well, I'm sure they're doing terrible now because of this shit.
Yeah, everyone's doing terrible right now.
Yeah, you can't really sell cookies and hang out with your friends if you've all got the virus.
It's the monthly membership dues that are tough right now. And there's there's some places that have Girl Scout troops, which are actually doing pretty well. I've been trying to work in Oregon. I actually volunteer with the Girl Scouts. So I'd actually been trying to work with a woman in Oregon to try to set up something similar for girls that are really rural, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I know what it's like, and having virtual Girl Scout troop meetings where you do crafts and you're socializing, albeit virtually, with other girls could be hugely helpful for some
Yeah.
girls, right?
Yep.
So, especially right now where the parents are just, the kids, they're just stuck with their kids all the time right now. Virtual Girl Scout troops, the places that do have that are working really well because the parents can find out from the troop ahead of time the supplies that are needed, make sure the kid has it, sits them in front of the camera and stuff, and gets a little bit of peace for like an hour.
Great
You
idea.
know what I mean?
Yeah, and while they're in the virtual Girl Scout troop video chat, that gives mom a little excuse to go smoke some of her own Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a
So yeah,
win-win.
yeah, exactly. So I think disco biscuits, both strains that I have seen out there, both come with a base that includes Girl Scout cookies, but the one that's award winning is this particular one has a slightly different phenotype. So I've tried to make sure to get that specific one, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, how you feeling over there?
Yeah, worth it, would you say?
It's worth it. It was and this is so funny to say, because I remember going to Amsterdam and being stoked at getting a White Widow for like what was equivalently in US dollars, like, $12 a gram, and being like, oh my God, this is amazing. But this is a little bit on the expensive side for Oregon weed at $10 a gram. But totally worth it. I think it was
Ring a ding ding, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, breaking the bank there. We're living
Yeah,
high on the
and
hog out here, everybody.
yeah, and it's from Meraki Gardens, which is one of the growers that I really like. I think their product is like super consistent, and in a situation where you're ordering it and I can't see it. I try really hard to make sure that I'm going with the brands that I trust. Meraki Gardens is a female-owned indoor operated garden.
Hmm.
So they're just like, they're very immaculate in my opinion. Like every time I've gotten something from them, I have been extremely happy. So can highly recommend Meraki Garden.
Good to know. Good to know. So I'm looking up disco biscuits on Urban Dictionary, which is a highly vetted,
Yes.
highly reliable source, of course. But apparently, it used to refer to quaaludes back in the disco days, and now it
See?
is slang for ecstasy. Yeah.
So you were right, Rafe.
Okay,
Yeah.
see, I was pretty sure that it by itself was reference to other drugs.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, so I was a little bit surprised, but then again, one of my other strains that I really like is called Green Crack, and because
I was gonna say, not
Yeah.
the first time we've
Yeah.
run into something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, and because people are super uncomfortable with selling anything in a weed store called crack, which I totally understand, they've renamed it Green Kush with like a C, or something else. I forget what the other thing that they call it now.
Unfortunate, cowardly. I loved the opportunity to tell people, y'all cowards don't even smoke green crack.
Is that a who regulates it now? The OLCC? Is that who?
Oh
does?
yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Is
They
that
give-
one
yep.
of their draconian rules? I wouldn't doubt it, because I remember that they were even saying they had to change some of the names because they sounded too kid friendly.
to the
Yeah,
ones
that
referring
was
to candy?
the reason
Yes.
Girl Scout cookies had to change to GSC.
Because kids can't tell the difference between a nugget of weed and an actual cookie.
Yeah, the other
Right.
one that I thought was really stupid was Skittles, and now people like spell it with Z's instead of like the candy, which
Oh God.
I don't care. Like, you know, I am very much like I don't the names of these don't really matter. Like
No, no.
that
Yeah,
is not a hill I'm gonna die on in the battle
exactly.
And
for
that
marijuana.
Yeah.
has been, then the names of strains have been a running gag amongst potheads since at least the late '60s, if not before.
Right,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I
yeah,
remember my friend when I first started smoking. My friend would always be like, "Hey man, you want to try some wizard smoke?" You know, like the ridiculous names have always been a part of the culture. You know.
yeah, and so I just like I do wish there was like a little bit more consistency. So when you find something, like it bothers me that like five different phenotypes are all called the same thing because when you find something that really works for you, um, and I understand that like some of it will be different just because of the different places you're sourcing it from, whether it's an indoor or an outdoor grow, you know, added terpenes, you know, the way that they fertilize and take care of the plants is it's going to make a difference. But
Yeah.
when they're actually different strains that are crossed and they call them the same thing, it makes it really hard when you find one that works really well for a particular condition like anxiety or pain or insomnia or something.
Yeah.
And then you're just trying to um you know, find that same medicinal effect again, and you're presented with a different product, and that can be really frustrating. So I'm fine with like whatever fruity funny name people want to give the strains, but you know, I'll be glad when we've matured. I mean, we've come so far in terms of having testing and safety and reliability into the product. We're getting more and more information and labeling on the packages. I'm just going to be glad when that has matured to a place where, you know, I don't know if you've ever been to Pharma, which is this great place in Portland.
Mm.
A really good dispensary. They do recreational medical, but their chemical profiles for the stuff they you know, the breakdown of all the different terpenes and everything that's in it is like really super in depth. You get so much information on that product. And I really hope like as this industry matures that that trend continues so that we have more of an understanding of what we're buying so we can hone that kind of stuff in.
That's right. An informed consumer is a good consumer, and yeah, consistency would be nice, like you said. So
Just
hopefully,
the ability to ask, go into a store and ask for something and know that you're getting the same thing you're asking for every time. That'd be, yeah.
Yeah, like a good example is there's like with the disco biscuits there's one that is very sativa leaning. There's one just from the same store that I was looking at. There's one that's sativa leaning, one that's a hybrid, and one that's almost a one for one CBD THC, and it's like 6% THC, like 9% CBD or something like that. Those are vastly different effects to
Mm-hmm.
all be called the same thing. And for people who are new to the world of marijuana and are searching for something that works for them for something like specific that they're dealing with, I think it makes it pretty hard for them to navigate, um, which is unfortunate. I want everyone to find, you know, the wine that they love and the weed that they love.
it's a wonderful thought. Definitely.
Yeah.
Certainly, yes. Would prefer that to living in the Mad Max future. That's, yeah. If I had my choice of alternate dimensions, yes, the one where everyone finds the weed they like would be that would be my first choice at this point.
We should put that on a 420 greeting card. May you find the weed that you like.
It's that it's that that frame from The Simpsons of Lionel Hutz imagining the world without lawyers.
Hmm.
Uh, smile and the world smiles with you, everyone. And support your local businesses, especially in these trying times. God knows they need it. Yeah. So every
Damn straight.
420, make some noise for your local friendly neighborhood weed dispensary workers. Because at this point, they are braver than the troops.
Here, here. Here, 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 here. I almost choked there saying that.